The disappearance of Ravel Balmain captured the attention of people everywhere. She was a talented dancer and model, her face seen on the cover of magazines. When this photo was taken last year, her parents, Ivor and Jan, had no idea it could be the last. For 12 months they've searched for answers and still they don't know what happened to Ravel.
Gradually, as the months have rolled by, we've come to the conclusion that perhaps she's been murdered. We can say it now. I haven't found any evidence of it. It's just a feeling.
Ravel called her parents days before she disappeared to say she was coming to see them at Soldiers Point. When she didn't arrive, they called police. Some of her belongings were later found at a roundabout at Kingsford in Sydney's southeast. This Sunday, a year to the day since she disappeared, her father will be at that roundabout.
And I've also made a cross that resembles the crosses that simply tells people that is a cross for someone that has been taken violently.
In their search for Ravel, Ivor and Jan are following numerous leads, but nothing concrete. They continue, though, to hope for that piece of information which will ease the agony of not knowing.
We'll keep the pressure on, we'll keep probing, we'll keep investigating ourselves, we'll keep annoying, we'll keep doing all we can to reveal what happened to our daughter.
The Rocket was a gallant second in the Moir Stakes last Saturday. The Kevin Burns-trained gelding and jockey Robert Thompson swamped in the shadows of the post. The Salinger boasts another strong field including Poetic King, Chief De Beers and Quality Gold, which will only carry a paltry 51.5 kilos. That's why Moss Rockets Connections have opted to contest the Linlithgow on Oaks Day next Thursday. Meantime, you could have been excused for thinking these blokes were off to ride in Tuesday's Cup. Their clobber resembled the colourful silks worn by jockeys, but these were no lightweights. Forget the classic uniform, what about the classic catch? The test pattern-like clothing modelled by East Maitland was enough to put anyone off, let alone Lambton in the greater night competition. East Maitland winning by 6 wickets, Stuart Panowitz scoring an unbeaten 55. And the Newcastle Motordrome will celebrate its 20th birthday tomorrow night. To mark the milestone, a demolition derby will feature along with fireworks and the super sedans in a 30-lap dash.
For long-term employees like Sue Leask, the official letter from the department was shattering. She's facing an uncertain future.
You feel a little let down that what you've been doing is suddenly not recognised anymore. But on the other hand, the positive side of it, it means that I've got to go out there and do something about a new position for myself.
Almost 100 staff received a letter from the Hunters Director General. The department says staff had plenty of warning following the August announcement and knew what to expect.
From a human point of view, one has to say people may be disappointed when they finally read in the letter what the situation is.
Only 62 people will continue to work in the Newcastle office. Other staff will be based in Taree, Lake Macquarie, Waratah and Maitland.
Of course, the underlying idea of this reorganisation is to bring more resources closer to schools, and for schools to have a one-stop shop, as we call it, which will be their district.
But the Hunter Public Service Association says it's been hoodwinked. The department's official line is that only 10 people will be forced out of a job, although many will take voluntary redundancies. However, the association claims more than 40 positions will be slashed.
I think we can probably look forward to some fairly serious disruption to the system over the next couple of weeks.
Mr Ferguson says the department was never interested in negotiating over the changes and has never shown employees any compassion. Heather Stewart, NBN News. It's tough to make it in the world of art, and the creators of these works know it. That's why the 7 university graduates have combined their talents to make an impact. While they share a common struggle to establish a name for themselves, their methods are individually different. Each with a personal style and a diverse variety of mediums, the artists have tackled striking issues on canvas. The result, a unique collection on show until November 19. And the Junction Public School will use creativity to reach its goal of raising $20,000 to establish a sun-safe area in the grounds. The Art Fest opens tonight, and over the weekend an impressive array of art and craft will be for sale, with a percentage of proceeds going to the project. The wide assortment of pottery, stained glass ornaments and a spectacular doll display are some of the features. Rows and rows of artwork, all for sale, are evidence of the talent of Hunter artists. And the lucky winner of the raffle gets to take home a Brian Wolfenden original. Heather Stewart, NBN News.
With Wyong and Singleton keen to make up a 12-team Newcastle competition, the CRL's Boundaries Committee met in Sydney yesterday. They've referred the matter back to the Central Coast annual general meeting later this month. If the move is sanctioned by the Central Coast, a committee will then be set up to make a final decision, hopefully early next month. In tennis, Anne Hamilton, playing in the cap, has won her 3rd Newcastle singles title, defeating last year's runner-up Lee Kessel. Hamilton last won the title 14 years ago, and with one of Australia's leading players looking on, took today's match in straight sets, 6-1, 7-5. In the men's final, Richard Nichols had few problems in successfully defending his crown. He needed just 2 sets to beat Mark McGuinty, 7-5, 6-love. Meantime, former Swansea Belmont competitor Guy Andrews has won the 3rd round of the Uncle Toby Super Series at Trigger Island in Perth. Matt Rees finished 5th, his best ever result, while one-time race leaders Drew Blatchford and Josh Blair were 8th and 16th respectively. And around 1,000 nippers swarmed onto Caves Beach this morning for the opening of the junior season. All 12 clubs were represented, with Swansea Belmont winning the carnival ahead of Redhead and Caves Beach.
The report published in the Medical Journal of Australia today is considered to be the most extensive study into hospital injuries ever undertaken. 14,000 cases were documented from 28 hospitals in New South Wales and South Australia. It shows that an adverse event or injury occurred for 1 in every 6 patients admitted to hospitals, with half preventable. 1 in 20 of those patients died as a result of the injury.
We are dealing here with situations in which the patient is very ill, in which things have to be done to try to put things right, and sooner or later a frail patient, an ill patient, a little thing going in a way you didn't mean may be a big blow to that patient.
Professor John Hamilton, Dean of the University of Newcastle Medical Faculty, is one of the authors of the report. He says the study could help to make our hospitals safer, as long as it's not used as a tool to lay blame.
If you look closely, and this is the biggest study that's ever been done in the world as far as we can tell, if you look closely, you will see many instances in which things can be improved.
The study will be adopted by the Commonwealth Task Force into Australia's healthcare system. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Paul Stevens and Ken Tuvey had unusual baggage for 3 weeks in Vanuatu, the usual tourist clubber supplemented by 5 mannequins. But this is no ordinary trip. They're about to take Project Restart overseas.
We've actually been asked by the authorities of Vanuatu to actually go over to Vanuatu and train them in CPR over the next 3 weeks, hoping that will increase their medical services.
I think it's very important. The lives that have been saved by just by Project Restart, and in the last 2 years, it's approximately 50 people have been saved, so if we can save some lives in other countries, well and good.
The government of Vanuatu invited the Australians after they helped teach the members of the Island Mercy when it was in Newcastle Harbour earlier this year. They aim to add to the 20,000 people who've already been taught CPR through Project Restart.
We're stopping in the main town of Port Vila for the 3 weeks, and we're actually doing lectures throughout the day, possibly around 6 hours per day for the 3 weeks we're actually there.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The Breakers are now waiting on a reply from the Mariners after a fresh round of discussions. The Breakers are without a major sponsor, and the extra cash to share the venue with the Mariners for a season could prove attractive.
It will get down in the long run to a business decision whether or not we continue negotiations with them, or whether they see that there is another site better than what Breaker Stadium is.
Meantime, Breakers coach John Cosmina did it as tough as anyone in the weekend's thriller against the Melbourne Knights. He's played down post-match comments on Friday and earlier in the season against Brisbane.
Yeah, I get a bit cranky, but I get a bit, as I said before, I'm very passionate about what I do. It was better when I was a player because at least you could take it out on someone else on the field, but as a coach it's a bit difficult.
Cosmina will lead his side to Morwell this Friday night, with the journey likely to be just as tough as the match for some.
We chartered a flight leaving from Williamstown, and it's supposed to be a 2-hour flight to the Latrobe Valley. We've got a couple of white knuckle jobs in the team. Troy Halpin in particular is not going to be a happy boy.
Joint competition leaders Morwell will be without Warren Spink, who's on rep duties, while the Breakers have slipped to 10th on the ladder.
The death of Anna Wood highlighted the need for more drug awareness programs in New South Wales schools. Anna died after taking an ecstasy tablet, not as common a drug as some other students are more certain to encounter, particularly cigarettes, marijuana and alcohol. This Year 7 class from St Paul's at Burrigal is one of 4 Hunter schools taking part in a trial program with life education. They're learning to say no to cigarettes.
Years 7, 8 and 9 are when they really seriously get into it. For example, you'll see the number of children in a typical class here of say 30 students go from probably 2 regular smokers this year, 4 next year and 6 the year after that, so it's quite a quick uptake.
Former Education Minister Dr Terry Metherell is now a director with Life Education. He says that in line with government policy, the group is planning to greatly increase drug education in all high schools.
We'll be adding an alcohol session next year, and then for Year 8 we'll be adding a marijuana session because that's now a very popular drug amongst teenagers.
Dr Metherell says marijuana use in schools is now greater than cigarette abuse, and while the dangers of cannabis will be included in the awareness program, designer drugs won't be.
Heroin, there'd be less than 1% of high school students would use it. With ecstasy, probably only 2 or 3%. That's not to say it's not a concern, but if you were to bring it into schools in an education program in a big way, you're likely to actually excite more experimentation than you are to turn it off.
The crypt the teenagers broke into is one of the oldest at Sandgate Cemetery. It's the last resting place of 13-year-old Benny Williams, who died in 1892. Newcastle Children's Court heard that on a night in August, the 4 17-year-olds from Wallsend removed a wooden covering from the crypt, which had the month before been vandalised. One of the boys used a knife to loosen the child's skull, which they then took to Stockland Mall at Jesmond, leaving it on a seat. All 4 youths pleaded guilty to the charge of interfering with human remains. Magistrate Warren Cook ordered that 3 of the boys go before the Community Aid Panel, where they'll be asked to do volunteer work. He suggested that might be to help clean up Sandgate Cemetery. Their efforts will then be evaluated when they come back before the court in February. Magistrate Cook told one of the boys, "This sort of behaviour, quite frankly, outrages people." He went on to say, "If it had been a relative of yours, you would have been very, very incensed." A warrant has been issued for the arrest of the 4th teenager who failed to appear in court.
Punting started early. 45 TAB agencies and 77 pub and club outlets struggled to keep up with the steady pace.
We started at 7:30 and it's been like this most of the day.
It was a tough decision for the gamblers, with a wide range of horses winning the vote of confidence.
Last year's winner, Wayne Harris on Jure.
My big tip is electronic.
I must say I like Bullwinkle.
Double Trigger and Vintage Crop.
Everyone seemed to make the most of the opportunity to get into the Cup Day spirit, even if they were still at work. The blood bank even got into the spirit.
I'm hoping it's June, yes.
Some splashed out and dolled up for the occasion, making it a day-long celebration.
Big day out? Yes, thank you, yes, yeah, very much so. Darling, pick the kids up at 3:30.
And most said they'd rather be in Newcastle for the big event.
Well, it's lovely out here, isn't it? You've got the beach next to you, plenty of food, plenty of drinks. You've got it on the big screen.
Come 3:20, all eyes were on the race.
It's a home away from home, new accommodation for out-of-town relatives who need to be near patients at the John Hunter. It's called the Kookaburra Cottage. On the grounds of the hospital, it accommodates up to 4 couples in private rooms. The building cost $300,000, funded by the state and the hospital's charitable trust fund. The Kookaburra Carers Auxiliary donated $15,000 towards furniture. 2 extra buildings are planned to make room for an additional 17 people. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Resembling a tram, the light rail car is destined to serve Hong Kong's new territories, a people-moving project of enormous proportions. The Kowloon Canton Railway Corporation chose Ganinan to supply 20 of the electric-powered vehicles to its expanding services. The tram was developed in Newcastle independently of the giant US General Electric, which normally supplies the engines and technology for other big contracts.
It's our first standalone passenger export contract. We've been in the area now for about 2 years trying to break into the lucrative market that is on offer in the Southeast Asian and Asian region.
The units will be built over 2 years and shipped to Hong Kong. The industry estimates about half of Asia's future public transport needs will be met by light rail systems.
We have a senior executive deployed in Kuala Lumpur now to pursue these contracts with vigour, and we believe this is our launching pad into that market.
The study will involve workshops with both small business people and large retailers, a distribution of questionnaires and surveys of both the Newcastle and Lake Macquarie communities.
What people are actually doing as far as their shopping profile, when they shop, how often they shop.
The results will be put to the Minister for Small Business, Carl Scully, early next year. Small operators say the extending shopping hours of the big retailers is killing their business. And the battle continues here at Toronto. Small business people are fighting a proposal for a Woolworths to be set up just off the main street. Lake Macquarie Council has discussed the possibility for the shopping giant to use the old bowling club site. Toronto already has 2 major supermarkets in Coles and Jewels. Shopkeepers say another one would be hard to take.
If they did that, I feel that would be absolutely catastrophic for the main street, and we just can't afford to have that happen.
A public meeting is being called on Tuesday. New figures show that the 3 major retailers in the state take 77% of the market. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Sydney Harbour and, for that matter, Lake Macquarie aren't big enough to lay out a proper Olympic course, but it's extremely unlikely that events would be moved from Sydney and its picturesque shoreline. As well as being relatively narrow, Sydney Harbour can be tricky to navigate, with some contenders complaining that locals will have an unfair advantage. Newcastle has been suggested as an alternative sailing centre, offering easy access to the ocean and improved marina facilities by the year 2000.
And it would provide, I think, an excellent base for running the yachting part of the 2000 Games. I don't think that'll happen, but I think it would be a terrific venue.
Already, the benefits of Australia hosting the Games are affecting local contenders, and there's renewed interest in a plan to establish a national youth sailing academy in the region.
I think the most immediate benefit has resulted in a funding increase for yachting. I think the government sort of said we want to win medals in 2000, so we'll start sort of supporting the athletes a bit better than they have done in the past.
It would have been a far worse scenario but for the quick action of firefighters. They stopped the blaze from spreading throughout the administration building, which houses valuable computers and irreplaceable records. It's believed the fire was lit at around 9:20 last night, the arsonist smashing windows to get into the building. Motorists on Mount Hall Road noticed the blaze a short time later.
It was real foggy on the hill. We thought it was fog. Then we drove past and we come up and we checked it out, put the high beams on the school, and there was just smoke pouring out of the building.
This morning, Public Works employees were cleaning up the mess while assessors tried to get a better idea of the damage bill. While most of the building was damaged by heat, smoke and water, the Deputy Principal's office and its contents were destroyed.
A good deal of the paper records of the deputy, his accumulated administrative files, but we were getting ready for a camping trip, so we had a pile of one big tent and a few small tents in the corner. We had a number of backpacks that we make available to children, and that's a significant loss.
Principal Ray Beaumont says the majority of the administration building should be cleaned and ready for use by early next week. The Deputy's office will have to be rebuilt. Irrawang High was opened in 1987 and is one of the region's newer schools. In the last few months, a number of windows have been smashed. Police are looking at the possibility the fire may have been lit by a disgruntled student or ex-student.
Milton Downs lies 60 kilometres northwest of Narrabri and makes up a large proportion of the state's overall wheat harvest each year. It's so big that 20 combine harvesters are currently spread across the 20,000 hectare property, with more machines on the way to help bring in the wheat. With prices up due to a global shortage of grain, it's a harvest that holds plenty of promise. The crop here this year is estimated to be worth $12 million, a huge improvement on 1994.
Yeah, we won't talk about last year. We didn't have any wheat last year.
Owned by the Manildra Group, the Milton Downs harvest has created 150 jobs, local and interstate contractors alike enjoying a share of the bounty. The property's silo is already full, so grain is now being stored at a holding depot near Moree. So far, 10,000 tonnes of wheat has been heaped up, with another 40,000 to be added to the stockpile. The weather is being kind to the harvest effort, the whole job expected to be completed in 10 days. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
It's the first tangible sign that the clean-up of lead in North Lake Macquarie is well and truly underway. This property in Bullaroo has been donated by Pasminco. It will house the Environmental Management Centre, where the clean-up will be coordinated from. At the centre's opening, the community was introduced to the project's manager. Dennis Pryor was Regional Head of State Government Public Works. He'll now oversee one of the state's biggest lead remediation programs.
I've got to work hard at getting to know the community and talking to people so that what we do has community support.
There are some 400 houses in the area said to be lead affected. Here at the Environmental Management Centre, it will be decided which houses have priority in the remediation process and how much money will be spent on each property.
Many of the properties need different types of remediation from each other, so we need to make sure we do it on a case-by-case basis.
Health Minister Dr Andrew Refshaugi says the government is committed to seeing the North Lakes area cleaned up. Last week, $200,000 was handed over to set up the centre, and today it was announced the state will allocate $2.1 million over 5 years for lead remediation in Bullaroo. Pasminco has also given $100,000. The clean-up of lead should begin early next year.
We've had a lot of words before, certainly a lot of commitment. Now we're seeing some reality. And the important thing is that the children of the future, the children's future, is going to be a much brighter future than they've been looking forward to up till now.
The Eagles drubbing by Perth last weekend wasn't the best introduction to the Hunter, but the club's American imports can't help but like their new home.
Absolutely love it. Yesterday I've had my first chance to do a little walking about and got up to Nobby's Beach and walked around there, went up to the obelisk up on the hill, had a look around, reminded me of my hometown, Portland, Oregon.
But they're here for the baseball, not the beaches, with the next test coming at the Sydney Showground tonight against the Blues.
Personally, I want to play like a man possessed, you know. But I want to balance that and play within myself, so that's what I'm looking to do.
I guess I'm throwing the first game tonight, you know, so just going to be thrown right into the role. And just throw strikes. Just got to throw strikes, not walk anybody, and I'll be all right, I think.
The Eagles will back up again tomorrow night as they try to erase the memories of a disastrous early season. The Americans will be keen to show off their new Australian language and drinking skills if they can win the doubleheader.
Well, that'll be right. No worries. You'll be laughing. Bob's your uncle. Those are the ones I like. Hopefully, if we can win 2 this weekend, we're going to head out to the rubbity-dub-dub.
Former Edgeworth shop owner James Cronin was found guilty in Wallsend Court yesterday of supplying cigarettes to a 12-year-old boy in February. He has to pay $750 and $146 court and witness costs. The fine was welcomed by Shirley Specht, the mother of the boy involved. Mrs. Specht became aware that her twin 12-year-olds had experimented in smoking after one became ill. Their conscience also got the better of them. The maximum fine for selling cigarettes to a person under the age of 18 is $5,000. This fine of almost $900 for one packet is one of the biggest ever in northern New South Wales, and police believe it stands as a warning to other shop owners.
I think there are a lot of parents out there who feel something should be done but never actually take any steps or any action.